John, thank you so much for stopping by here
Yeah.
and visiting us at LSI Europe. Tell me a little bit about yourself first.
Yeah, my pleasure. So my name's John Wong. I'm a co-founder and CEO of Fluid Biomed. We're a preclinical medical device startup based out of Calgary, Canada. And we're developing the next generation of brain stents to cure aneurysms. I'm a neurosurgeon. I've been in practice for almost 20 years, trained in Canada and at Yale, have my MBA from Wharton. And along the way, along the journey of practice of curing patients with stroke and aneurysms, myself and my co-founder, who's also a neurosurgeon and a biomedical engineer,
Okay.
we developed the next generation of stents. Stents nowadays are these mesh tubes that we insert into a blood vessel, and it helps heal the blood vessel. Stents currently are made out of metal, so they're permanent, and although they are flexible, they are inert, and there are some challenges with them in that for patients, although they're treated with a stent, about a quarter of patients, they don't cure their aneurysms. So there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. What my startup is doing is developing the world's first bio-resorbable stent. So after you implant it into the blood vessel, it will heal the aneurysm and then disappear over time. Surgeons can now treat a wider variety of aneurysms more efficiently, more safely, potentially.
That's incredible. Why would we use a stent to treat an aneurysm when we have flow diverters and coiling? What makes what you're doing better than the gold standard?
Yeah. Well, medicine's always been marked by these series of milestones and improvements. 30 years ago, I had to open up the skull to treat an aneurysm. And you're right, nowadays we can go from inside of the body with tiny wires and tubes and release these coils into the aneurysm, go into the weakest part of the aneurysm to plug it up, so to speak. Then the next phase were these stents, these flow diverting stents made out of metal, but again, not perfect technology. 25% of patients don't cure their aneurysms with the existing technology. So we think our project, our advancement here is to treat more patients with different types of aneurysms more effectively, more safely, because we can actually combine treatments. Not only can you put in our stent, but you can also put in coils at the same time. So that provides tremendous reassurance to the patients as well as the physicians that they're doing the right thing at one time.
That's excellent. You're a bioresorbable stent. The technology has had some challenges in the past. Boston Scientific, Abbott, I believe they've abandoned their coronary bioresorbable scaffolds. What have you learned from maybe their failures, and how are you basically the next generation of bioresorbable?
Yeah. Well, we've been in stealth mode now for about 6 or 7 years. And so we've been working on this technology behind the scenes quietly. And as you know, the heart is very different than the brain overall. And the disease that the cardiologists are treating with their stents, with their bioresorbable stents, completely different than what we're trying to treat. In the heart, you're trying to break open a narrowing. So the stents have to be stiff. They have to be firm, and they're typically what we call balloon mounted. They have to stretch the blood vessel open. Our stent, we want to put it very delicately into the blood vessel because it's a weakness, it's an aneurysm. So our stent is much more flexible, much more thin. In fact, our stent struts are about 3 times less dense than, say, the coronary stent. So the analogy I like to say is that just because something has 4 wheels doesn't make it the same thing. You can have a tractor, like a coronary stent, or you can have a Ferrari, like our stent. So I think it's a very different product overall.
Very cool. Tell me a bit about the research that you guys have done in developing this bioresorbable stent.
Well, again, my co-founder is also a biomedical engineer in addition to being a neurosurgeon. So we've had numerous trainees in our laboratory working on our product, working on the whole concept of this bioresorbable technology. At this point, we have implanted our stent into scores of animal models and cured aneurysms in these animal models. And so it really gives us a lot of hope that our technology can be leveraged to the human condition to treat patients, because a patient with a burst aneurysm, a burst brain aneurysm, a third of the time they will pass away, they'll succumb. And so I think that if we're able to move from the laboratory to the bedside, so to speak, and help these people, I think that's going to be a tremendous advancement.
Absolutely. We've heard a lot at this conference of talk about people and why building the right team and finding the right partners is so integral to what innovators such as yourselves are doing. Could you maybe talk a little bit about your experience in building the right team and finding those partners?
Yeah. Well, I totally agree. It's all about the team. It's not even about the technology. In fact, my co-founder and I have known each other for 20 years. Incredible human being, incredibly smart and talented. Again, not only a neurosurgeon, but also an engineer. And we came upon the idea after we decided to work together because we felt that with our two skill sets, we had the ability to really transform what we do as doctors. As a surgeon, I can only help one patient at a time. By taking this technology from concept to the lab, eventually, hopefully, to the clinic, we can help thousands of patients around the world. So that's a key driver for us as well, because a brain aneurysm and the consequent stroke, it's terrible overall. And so if we can avoid that disability, avoid the sadness that follows, it'll make all of this worth it.
What else were you guys looking at before you landed on aneurysm? Let's try to fix this.
Yeah. Well, this is a big enough challenge as it is already.
Yeah.
We've got a ton of other ideas. Stay tuned for part 2.
Well, I look forward to it then. I hope to see you at the next conference so that we can talk about part 2.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure, John.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.